Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my 6 players you need after round 10 in 2023 fantasy football. We are going to be categorizing after round 10 as pick 121 and beyond, since that is where the 11th round begins in 12-team leagues. So before we can get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. While you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into 6 players you need after round 10 in 2023 fantasy football. We begin with Nico Collins, wide receiver of the Houston Texans. Current Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings have him as the wide receiver 53 at pick 123. Underdog Fantasy ADP has him as the wide receiver 54 at pick 115.3. Now, early reports are showing that CJ Stroud's favorite target so far in the offseason practices is Nico Collins, according to ESPN's DJ BN Amy. Wide receiver 78 last year in half PPR, and the wide receiver 53 in half PPR points per game. He played in 10 games last season with 7 starts, having 66 targets, 6.6 per game, number 63 at wide receiver, 37 receptions, 3.7 per game, number 72, 481 receiving yards, 48.1 per game, number 68, and 2 total touchdowns, 76 at wide receiver. Now, I know those stats aren't amazing, right? You don't look at those stats, you don't hear those stats, and the blood doesn't instantly start flowing downstairs, right? But what you have to understand about Nico Collins is that this guy has been in an incredibly tough situation his whole career, and last year, the quarterback play was just about as bad as it could get for a wide receiver. 6.2 target accuracy for Nico Collins last year, ranking 100th at wide receiver. There are blind people that could have thrown the ball more accurately to Nico Collins than the man with the huge neck, Davis Money Mills. But luckily for us, and luckily for Nico Collins, Davis Mills is not going to be the starting quarterback. It is going to be Ohio State standout quarterback, first round 2023 NFL draft selection, CJ Stroud. And again, despite the dog shit, bottom of the barrel quarterback play, Nico Collins still had a 66.7% catch rate, second at wide receiver, and a 112.1% true catch rate, fourth at wide receiver. So again, even though the passes were awful coming from Davis Mills, Nico Collins was still coming down with the rock. And Nico Collins, closer towards the end of the season, I know he didn't play the full season, but there was stretches there for Nico Collins, where when he was playing, this guy was out targeting Brandon Cooks. And if we know anything about Brandon Cooks' career in the National Football League, it's that this man sucks in targets. He's the throat goat. He gets so many targets game in and game out, and still Nico Collins was able to find success. Brandon Cooks now obviously gone in Dallas. The competition is Robert Woods, who hasn't looked great recently. John Mechie III, who I like a ton as a player. We'll see how he kind of finds his role in this offense. Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, right? If you look at those wide receivers, it's pretty clear that Nico Collins is going to be the number 1 receiver on this team. And I know the Houston Texans are probably not going to be great. They're not going to magically become one of the best offenses in the National Football League, but it doesn't take them going to become the 10th best offense in the NFL. All they have to do is not be complete and utterly terrible, and Nico Collins should get a huge boom, a huge burst of fantasy points here in this new offense. I am very excited about Nico Collins. He's been a guy that has been on my radar over the last couple of years, but this year, it feels like the time to strike while the iron is hot with Nico Collins. Next up, we move to Darnell. Here comes the Mooney, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears. Fantasy Pros ECR wide receiver 53 at pick 124, underdog ADP wide receiver 59 at pick 128.7. Now, last year, I was all over the Darnell, here comes the Mooney train. I was all over it. I was ecstatic to get Darnell Mooney, the wide receiver #1 of the Chicago Bears, where he was going. I was banging the table, banging the drum. I was ecstatic for Darnell Mooney. But the only banging that happened during the season for Darnell Mooney was when he banged me directly in the asshole. Wide receiver 74.5 PPR and wide receiver 63.5 PPR points per game. Again, expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 53 at pick 124. Underdog ADP wide receiver 59 at pick 128.7. I think a lot of fantasy players are mad at Darnell Mooney because he burnt them last year. There's people that will believe, hey, this guy fucked me over once, I'm not drafting him again. And I get it. Sometimes it hurts, but pain heals. All right, and I think that Darnell Mooney is going to have a much better season. Again, wide receiver 74.5 PPR last year, 63.5 PPR points per game, a complete and utter disaster. 12 games played in 2022, 61 targets, 70th at wide receiver, 40 receptions, 67th, 439 receiving yards, 65th, and 2 total touchdowns, 76th. I know, the stats, not good. Bad. Bad news bears. Terrible for where you drafted him. But if you look at the interesting efficiency stats, you'll figure out that while Darnell Mooney shit the bed last season, he was actually pretty efficient. 102.6% true catch rate, 6th. 54.5% contested catch rate, 15th. 46.1% route win rate, 18th. 46.6% win rate versus man, 11th. A lot of people seem to think that the Chicago Bears are not going to have enough offensive output, enough passing attempts for DJ Moore to succeed. People don't think that. They think that despite the fact that Justin Fields in college was this prolific passer, moving the ball up the field like it was nothing. They think he's lost it. Magically, the guy fucking forgot how to do it. They think that the Chicago Bears aren't going to throw the ball. Now, I get it. I don't think the Chicago Bears are going to be the most pass-heavy team in the NFL. Far from it. But what I do believe is that Darnell Mooney is given better opportunity this year. We've seen that Darnell Mooney plays well as the #2 receiver. The problem was, last year, we threw him to the Wolves. I thought he had the dog in him. I thought he'd be able to get out of there, but he didn't. He's not a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. But guess what? Now he doesn't have to be because wiki DJ Moore is there, and I think there's some solid upside for Darnell Mooney, especially, I understand he's probably not going to be very consistent, but in good matchups, there's reason to believe that the Chicago Bears could drop their nuts and score 30-plus points in any given game. And in the right matchup, Darnell Mooney could be a matchup nightmare for defenses. And again, he'll never have to face the best corners because they will be on the boy, DJ Moore. Speaking of Moore, we got Skyy with 2 Ys Moore, wide receiver, the Kansas City Chiefs. Fantasy Pros ECR wide receiver 55 at pick 131. Underdog ADP wide receiver 49 at pick 97.9. Andy Reid, the Kool-Aid man himself, has stated that Moore is taking a good jump and noted that Moore was one of the highest targeted receivers in minicamp. The Athletic's Nate Taylor writes, Chiefs' top slot receiver option appears to be Skyy Moore. Now, I think there is some solid value for all of the Chiefs wide receivers, right? With Juju Smith-Schuster gone, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of shots you can take deep in drafts. Now, if you're someone who's drafting Kadarius Toney, even after him having surgery done on his knee, good luck to you. Good luck to you. But besides him, they've got MVS, Rashee Rice, Richie James, I'm Rick James, bitch, and Justin Ross. A lot of options. But I think Skyy Moore, as the slot guy, I know, the stats last year, bad, right? He's a second-round pick. People were getting their rocks off to drafting Skyy Moore, and he wasn't good. I get it. He wasn't good. 33 targets, 22 receptions, 250 receiving yards, no touchdowns, right? He was the not the second overall pick. He was a second-round draft pick, didn't produce. He was the wide receiver 123.5 PPR and wide receiver 143.5 PPR points per game. But the reason why we play fantasy football and don't just stare at the stats from last year is because things are going to change. I don't have Skyy Moore ranked as wide receiver 123 because he did it last year, right? He's going to finish significantly higher than that. The Kansas City Chiefs are an offense on paper that spreads the ball out a ton, besides Kelsey, who just dominates in terms of targets, right? He's going to see a lot of targets because he's the best tight end in the National Football League. And to be honest, he's the best fucking receiver on the team. But I think if Skyy Moore can find some success, find a strong role in this offense, you are going to want to take the shot, the deep shot on a guy on the offense that is quarterbacked by Patrick fucking Mahomes. So you don't have to do any mental gymnastics to draft Skyy Moore. I know, wasn't great last year, but he's coming off the board at pick 131 on expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros, pick 97.9 on Underdog. Right? It's not like he is a top 5 round pick. It's a late round pick. It's a dart throw. And I want to take dart throws. I know Nico Collins not in a great offense. I just think he's a great player. Darnell Mooney, I think that offense could be pretty solid. Skyy Moore, if you want to take the shot on the best offense in the National Football League, you might as well do it with the boy Skyy with 2 eyes more. And again, the wide receivers like MVS, he's going to have a couple good games, but has never really been consistent. Rashee Rice, rookie. Richie James hasn't been the best in the NFL. Justin Ross, same thing. So we shall see. I think this is a spot that I want to exploit drafting these late round Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers. If you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, halfway through the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. It helps me out a ton. At number 4, we have the boy, Tyler Higbee, tight end of the LA Rams. Expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros, tight end 14 at pick 132. Underdog Fantasy, tight end 15, pick 143.9. Now, last year, he was the tight end 9.5 PPR, but he was the tight end 18.5 PPR points per game. But if you guys remember last season, every single thing went wrong for the Rams. We talk about how the Colts, Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. The offensive line is bad. Matt Ryan looks terrible, right? They fire Frank Reich. They bring in Jeff Saturday, right? Everything goes wrong. Same shit happens to the Rams. The Rams go from the Super Bowl hurrah to Matthew Stafford hurt. Cooper Kupp hurt. Defense doesn't look as good. Baker Mayfield's playing quarterback, right? So if Stafford's able to stay healthy, and this defense isn't the same defense that we're used to, they're going to have to be throwing the ball a ton. This is a plus for Higbee. Plus, the room around Cooper Kupp is bad. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking, Nick, you talked up Van Jefferson, so how do you think Van Jefferson isn't that good? That doesn't make sense. Well, the reason why I like Van Jefferson is because the wide receiver core is dog shit outside of Cooper Kupp. So someone's got to be the number 2 guy. Someone's got to be the number 2 option. And it's pretty clearly Van Jefferson, right? They don't have Odell anymore. They don't have these great receivers. Allen Robinson gone. So Higbee is in a really good spot because Higbee might be able to even out-target Van Jefferson. 17 games played in 2022, 108 targets, 6.4 per game, number 4 tight end. 72 receptions, 4.2 per game, number 5. 620 receiving yards, 36.5 per game, number 9. So top 10 targets, receptions, receiving yards. But he only scored 3 total touchdowns. So imagine what happens if he falls ass backwards into 7 touchdowns, right? That's not a crazy thing to think. Just 7 touchdowns, he's way better. He is a very safe option at the tight end position with a lot of upside, especially given Matthew Stafford is able to stay healthy and this offense starts humming a little bit more. Again, they took a deep dive off the edge of earth last year. Still, Higbee, 14th most dominant tight end, 4th in target share, 6th in target rate. Tyler Higbee has always been a pretty consistent tight end option, and I think he's going to continue to do that in 2023. And if you missed on those guys that you really like, you missed on, I really wanted Evan Ingram, or I don't really like Evan Ingram that much, but I really wanted, for instance, a guy that I actually like, Darnell Mooney. I didn't get Mooney. Do I really want to pay up for Schultz or Chig, or do I want Dulcich? And then you're fucking sitting there. Guess what? Just take Higbee. He's got pretty good upside, very safe player. And again, his role in the offense is there's a very clear path towards targets in that offense. Moving now to the number 5 player you need after round 10, we got Tank Bigsby, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fantasy Pros ECR running back 52 at pick 153. Underdog ADP running back 45 at pick 136.7. Now, we've mentioned Underdog a couple of times. They are the sponsor of today's video. If you guys are brand new to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code Notorious, you will get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100. Or you can click on the link in the video description. So you deposit 100, they give you an additional 150, additional 50, 25, an additional 25. Well, Nick, what is Underdog Fantasy? Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy football, best ball this summer. Best ball, if you don't know, it's the best part about fantasy. It's the draft, and that's it. You do your 18-round draft, there's no waivers, there's no trades, and there's no in-season management because Underdog automatically sets the lineup for you at the end of the week with the highest scores. The best part about that is you can do hundreds of drafts and not have to worry about doing your waivers, setting your lineups, right? My favorite part about fantasy is the draft. And now I can do my favorite thing for real. It's not a mock draft. It actually counts. Again, they have the biggest fantasy football contest ever. It's on the screen right now. $15 or $25 to enter. Best Ball Mania 4. $15 million in total prizes. $3 million to first place. Now that's a big tournament. $25 to enter. They also have smaller games, like cash games almost, like a regular league. So $3 to enter, as low of a bind as $3. You and 11 other people, 12 total people, and the first two places make money. If that sounds fun to you, make sure you check it out. Link in the video description. I love drafting on there, and the live streams are coming soon for me drafting on Underdog. Now, number 5, Tank Bigsby, running back of the Jaguars. He was a third-round pick at pick 89 in 2023. He played 3 years at Auburn with over 800 rushing yards in every single season. In 2022, at 21 years old, he played in 12 games, 179 rushes for almost 1,000 yards, 970 yards, 30 receptions for 180 yards, 15.3% target share, and 10 total touchdowns. Tank, he's a big boy, 6 foot, 210 pounds. Now, despite the fact that the Auburn offensive line was awful, the Auburn offensive line was as useful as a broken condom. They were third lowest graded run blocking line in the SEC last season. He still averaged 4.2 rushing yards after contact per attempt, ranking 7th, and he had 5.5 yards per carry. Again, the offensive line was folding like a table the drunk Buffalo Bills fans light on fire and jump through. And still, he succeeded. We saw last year in Jacksonville. ETN might not be cut out for this. Might not be that guy. A lot of people coming out of college, out of Clemson, people are like, oh, Lawrence, ETN, look at how good ETN is at catching passes. And then in the NFL, Blood is shitting himself trying to catch the ball. Shitting himself. He's dropping passes. Now, I'm not saying that Tank Bigsby is the second coming of Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey, but he can also catch passes. Tank Bigsby has gotten a bit of fluff by the coaches, by the beat reporters, talking about how great Tank Bigsby looks. Now, I don't think Tank Bigsby is going to walk in, mosey on in there, and steal the role from ETN as the lead back. But could Tank Bigsby create and carve himself the role of someone who gets a decent amount of touches? Might get some work on the goal line because he's big compared to ETN. Could he catch some passes? Could he work in more? Yes. And if something happens to ETN, Bigsby is going to be in the perfect spot to succeed and maybe be a top 10, top 12 running back weekly if something was to happen to ETN. Again, knock on wood, though. We don't root for injuries. Final player that you need to be drafting after round number 10, we got Isaiah Hodgins, wide receiver of the New York Football Giants, Fantasy Pros ECR wide receiver 70, pick 167, underdog ADP, wide receiver 74 at pick 171.9. Last year, wide receiver 72.5 PPR and 51.5 PPR points per game, though he was the wide receiver 30.5 PPR points per game when playing 60+% of the snaps, 7-game sample size, 10 games played with 5 starts. His season finish in the stats isn't great. 47 targets, 88th, 37 receptions, 72nd, 392 receiving yards, 86th, and 4 total touchdowns, 37th. But what's important is when you do the actual deep dive, you look into what happened during the season. Down this stretch of the season, when he was actually getting starting time, from week 13 to week 17, he finished as a top 24 wide receiver in 4 of 5 games, as well as a monstrous, amazing, fantastic, chef's kiss menu freak performance up against the Minnesota Vikings in a playoff win. Wildcard game. So, it was clear down the stretch of the season that they want to use Hodgins, that he is that guy. Now, the wide receiver core is better than last year. They got Perry Campbell, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Crowder, Wan'Dale Robinson. They've got some cooks in the kitchen. They got Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. We already talked about him. They have Darren Waller, who I really like. But let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. Do we think Paris Campbell's going to out-target Isaiah Hodgins? Do we think Slayton is? No. Crowder? No. Cole Beasley? No. Right? Sure, there's some competition. Competition isn't very good. Last year, despite, not really even being someone I even knew about, I didn't think that Hodgins was going to do shit in his NFL career, if I'm being honest. 53% route win rate. First at wide receiver. Number 1 in win rate versus man. 7th in fantasy points per target. 12th in contested catch rate. This Giants offense was a completely different wildebeest compared to the seasons prior. Joe Judge, the offense, Daniel Jones, fucking napping. But under Brian Daboll, they awoke. They got that dog and Daniel Jones out. I expect this offense to be good. Saquon signs his contract, right? You thought, people were thinking, oh my God, he's not going to play. Of course he wasn't good. Of course he was always going to fucking play. He was going to fold. They all do. Money talks. You want to know what else talks? The number 1 receiver on the New York Football Giants that goes basically undrafted. I love Isaiah Hodgins in 2023 fantasy football. I think this Giants offense is going to be really good. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy again. Link in the video description. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great guys' day. And as always, good boy.